Hello, folks. This week we're going to be taking a look at finger picking. So we're going to be playing some arpeggios of some familiar chords and maybe one or two chords that are a little less familiar. It's a really good way to change up the rhythm of a song. And this might just be a warm-up for a new song that'll be coming along shortly. C6 is great because you don't have to do anything with your left hand. We can just brace the ukulele and get to work. All right, so here we are. We're going to be playing the C6 chord. So my left hand doesn't have to be doing anything right now. It's just helping hold the ukulele in place. Now, if you can see where my fingers are landing right now, I've got each of my right hand fingers resting on the assigned string. All right, so my thumb is on the G string. That's my fourth string, closest to the ceiling. And my index finger is on the C string. My middle finger is on the E string. And my ring finger is assigned to the A string. That's the string that's closest to the floor. So when I'm playing this pattern, I am starting from the fourth string. So I pluck it with my thumb. And then I go to the C string, the third string, pluck that with my index finger. My middle finger will pluck the E string. And then my ring finger down there will finish off by plucking the A string. Now how this pattern works is we're just going to keep repeating that pattern. So G, C, E, A, thumb, index, middle, ring, thumb, index, middle, ring. It might take some time to really get comfortable maintaining that pattern and not, doing something like this or... What happens is when we do stuff like that, it moves our hand around and it's going to make it more difficult to repeat that pattern if our fingers are jumping around. Sometimes we have to if we have patterns that are changing throughout the course of a song or a progression or something like that. But for right now, we are going to leave each of these fingers assigned, and we want to get really comfortable playing our assigned strings. The other thing that I want to be careful about is I don't want my fingers to wander too far away from the strings. My fingers are bouncing off of the strings because I want to make a nice... I want to make contact with those strings and pluck those strings, but I also don't want to flick my fingers way far away from the instrument. I want to keep my hands really close. I want to keep all my fingers hovering around their assigned string. And again, it's going to take a little while to kind of get that spatial awareness. Hi, Squeak. Let's play this C6 arpeggio. Now, an arpeggio is a broken chord. It's when we play a chord, but we play it one note at a time, usually from low to high or high to low. So in the case of C6, we're just going to be playing those open strings. Our G string, C string, E string, and A string, like so. All right, now I've got my metronome here. I've got it set to 83 beats per minute. I'm going to get that started and count us in, and we'll play along. So first I want to listen to that metronome. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a fairly simple thing that you can do while you're watching Netflix or just kind of lounging about. Like, it doesn't really take much thought. You might have to think about it a little bit at first just to make sure that you're doing it correctly and making sure that your fingers are holding the right position. But once you kind of get those fundamentals under your fingers, you can kind of practice this little plucking pattern almost absent-mindedly until it becomes second nature, and then we can start applying it to some other chords. So let's take a look at some of those other chords. F is played like so. We've got our second finger on the second fret of the G string and index finger on the first fret of the E string. And your C string and A string are open. C7, we are playing with just the index finger on the first fret of the A string. The rest of your strings are played open. Exercise 2 on your PDF features an F chord and a C7 chord. So we're going back and forth. We're going to play 4 measures of F and then 4 measures of C7. Okay, now, again, I've got the camera focused on the right hand here because the right hand is going to be the one that we want to focus in on. So I will call out the chords as they are changing, but you should be able to hear them as well. And you can follow along on the PDF. All right, so I'm going to go without the metronome this time, and we're just going to play. I will count, and we're going to go F for 4 measures, C7 for 4 measures, and then we're going to repeat. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Switch to C7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, changing back to F. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Back to C7. 3, 4. And last time. Now, the idea is that you'll be continuing to just play that over and over and over again. As you get more and more comfortable with it, maybe you want to try switching between those chords a little bit faster. So just going from a measure of F to a measure of C7, you could do that. Finally, we have example 3, which is a B flat and a B flat minor. Now these are a little bit tricky. B flat is the first of our bar chords here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hold down my index finger across all 4 of my strings right here on the first fret. Now, first fret can be a little tough to hold down all those strings. One of my little tricks to playing bar chords is to actually roll my finger back a little bit. I'm kind of like using the inside of my finger, leaning back like so. So this is an exaggerated version of what I will do, but that kind of helps me get all those strings sounding out. So I've got 1 finger down across the first fret. Cool. You might have to adjust your finger a little bit to get those nice clean sounds, and if every note isn't sounding perfect, don't worry too much about it. Give your hand a chance to build up some strength. From there, once I have my finger in place, my index finger in place across the first fret, I'm going to be adding my middle finger on the second fret of the C string and my ring finger on the third fret of the G string. So I'm playing 3, 2, 1, 1, but like even though the first fret of the C and the G string aren't going to sound out, I'm using my whole finger there because that's going to be a little bit of reinforcement for my other two fingers here, for my ring finger and my middle finger. And additionally, when we switch from this B to the B, that's a B flat, and when we switch from the B flat to the B flat minor, my pointer finger being right here means that the only thing that I have to do to transition from the B flat to the B flat minor is I've just got to lift up this middle finger. And that's all there is to it. So this is definitely going to be the toughest chord of the bunch. So, be patient and let your hand build up that strength. But once we have those chords under our hands, again, that transition between B flat and B flat minor is going to be pretty smooth. So once your hands are kind of locked in, you should be able to switch back and forth relatively easily. I know we're speaking in relative terms when we're dealing with bar chords. So here we go. Starting with the B flat, we've got 2 measures of B flat, and then we move to B flat minor, and we're just going to go back and forth a few times. So we're just going to play 2 times through this pattern. So B flat minor, B flat minor. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the B flat minor, and back to B flat. And B flat minor. That's all there is to it. Let's run through that again. This time, I'm going to play those 4 measures 4 times. So we'll go B flat minor, and we'll do that 4 times this go. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. B flat. And switch to minor. Back to B flat. B flat minor. B flat. B flat minor. B flat. B flat minor. And there we are. Now, sometimes when you're playing arpeggios, you're going to find that the strings that you need to hit are going to make it a little bit tricky to get from one chord to the next. F and C7 are pretty forgiving with this particular picking pattern that we're playing here. When you're just strumming chords, it's easy to cover up some of those little buzzes that happen during the transition. When we are finger picking, when we're playing one string at a time, if that first note is not... if we're not quite on that transition, that first note, it's going to be a little tough. We have to work on those transitions as they come. But F to C7 is relatively simple. Thankfully, we've got open strings going on here. So having those open strings is really handy. When I start on that F, and I have to transition to the C7, I can start playing that open G, and as I'm playing the other 2 strings, I can get my index finger on the first fret of the A string. So I'm kind of like gearing myself up. See, I could kind of take my time getting where I needed to go. Likewise, going back to the F, while I'm playing, once I've got my index finger here, I can start moving my middle finger back to that second fret of the G. I'm going to do that in slow motion a couple times just so you can kind of see that transition. You can imagine how a more complicated chord would be even tougher to nail down that transition. But this is why we're starting simple, and we'll work our way up from there. So that is it for this lesson. Keep working on those patterns. Try it out with some other chords. Try it on A chord. Try it on a G chord. Are there any other chords that you know this pattern will work with? Try it out on a song or two, maybe that you already know. But as I mentioned earlier in the video, we're building up the tools to play a brand new song. So stay tuned, stay well, and I'll see you in the next one.